Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. Today, we have a special guest on our podcast, and this guest is my beloved son. We are going to have some conversations about his great journey. He has gone all the way from working at Starbucks to having a job offer at JP Morgan. And so I'm excited to have him on and for him to talk about his journey and where he's come from and how he's felt. So, how has it been, Dyran? Great to have you on the show.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I don't know what else there is to say. Um, you know, I'm excited to be back home after a great summer in New York. And like you said, the job offer's been a great opportunity. It's very exciting. So looking forward to today's conversation.
I am so proud of you, proud of all the accomplishments and what you've been able to do. So, tell a bit to the audience about where you are, where you're at school at the moment, and kind of where you're at in your school journey, and kind of what brought you to where you are today.
Buckle in, it'll be quite a long story, but just for a little glimpse of where I'm at right now, I'm currently attending Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And there I'm studying business administration with a concentration in analytics and technologies, with also a minor in Russian studies. So, in just a few weeks, I'll be going back to school to start my final semester. And then following that, I'll graduate in December, have a little bit of time off, and then looking to start working around February, March. So it's been quite a ride, and I'm excited to go back to school. I think after working this summer, it gives me a greater appreciation for some of the downtime that you have in school, between only attending maybe 4 to 5 hours of class every day, classes starting later in the day, that sort of thing. But what's led me up to this moment, I'd have to say going all the way back to high school, attending Phillips Academy Andover, I think definitely gave me my first glimpse into what it was like to be away from home, to be surrounded by driven, intelligent students. And being surrounded by people like this encourages me to continue pushing myself, which has ultimately led to this point where I'm at today.
That's awesome. And as you were talking, one of the things that you pointed out and was kind of jumped out at me was you said you like going back to school because you feel like it's not going to be as taxing. So what are your thoughts behind that, and why is it? Is it because was work a lot? How was your days this summer with your internship?
So I think the biggest part behind that is the expectations that people have from you. So, when you're a student, you're expected to study hard, do well in your exams, that sort of thing. And outside of that, I feel like there aren't too many more expectations. But of course, when you're at work, you're expected to deliver good work on time, collaborate well with others. And I do feel like within an 8 to 10 hour workday, that can be a bit more, take a little bit more energy versus, attending classes for maybe 4 or 5 hours where somebody's talking to you and all you have to do is take notes, maybe answer a couple of questions. So I'd say that's what's making me excited, kind of just getting to go back and relax a bit, although I still will be studying hard.
That's interesting because you said that, and then I thought about, have you always thought that school was this way, or did you have a different way of thinking? Because it sounds like your experiences allowed for you to have a kind of a reframing of how school is and what school is all about. Do you have a different appreciation for school?
Absolutely. And this summer, I was only working on the desk for about 8 weeks, but that routine of, waking up early, my hours weren't too bad, maybe about a 10-hour day, and, getting off at 6, coming home, making dinner, going to the gym, doing whatever, and then getting ready to go to sleep and repeat again. So you can be up early versus, going to school, classes don't start until 11. You might be done around 4 p.m. So have time to go to the gym, eat dinner, do your homework, and then you have the whole night ahead of you because you stay up a little bit later, wake up late again the next day, go to class. So I definitely do have a greater appreciation for the more kind of loose schedule and I guess more freedom that you have when it comes to planning how you want to spend that free time.
Yeah, that is very good to be able to have that idea at an early age and to understand that appreciation for the difference in schedule because now you've been exposed to working. I just remember being in school and my focus was to try to get out as quickly as I could so I could go work, but I'm not understanding that I'm going to be working for another 40, 50 years of my life. Why not enjoy the moment at this moment? And that's a lot of what the focus has been for Produce on Purpose and why we should be producing on the purpose that we have in life. So, Dyran, what do you think, based on where you are, is your purpose and what you are supposed to be doing at this moment in your life?
Yeah. So I'd say from an early age, I think I've always found joy in meeting new people, even if they don't speak the same language as me, and connecting over things that we can share. And I think as I continue to progress in my professional career, it'll be sharing the information I learn along the way and helping others follow the same path because I'm sure we'll get to it a bit later, but one of the programs I'm a part of, they have a mantra, which is not about you, it's about those who have come before you and those who will come after you. So my goal is if I'm able to get into an internship seat at JP Morgan, well then my goal is I want to perform well enough, learn what skills are necessary to get into the job and to succeed while you're there so that, two students from Carnegie Mellon could come behind me. And then from there, we'll have four and so on and so forth.
Wow, that's an interesting perspective. So you're taking what you're learning and you're passing it along. What are some ways you've already done that, whether it's at school or any programs that you've participated in that has allowed you to do that?
Yeah, I think it's just being willing to talk and help people whenever you can. Reflecting on my experience up until this moment, there have been so many people who've taken maybe 20, 30 minutes of their time just to sit on the phone or, in a cafe and talk to me, give me advice, that sort of thing. So while I am still early on in my career, I do feel that I'm in the place to give advice about, how do you get an internship? How do you do well in an internship? That sort of thing. So the best thing I can do right now, just be open, let people know that I'm willing to have that conversation and I'm there to support them.
So you shared with me in the past that you have been able to help others. What are some of the key elements of what you feel has gotten you to this place? Number one, has gotten you to where you could get the internship. So, what were the programs that you ended up being a part of, and how did you get to those programs? And we'll get to a question later where we give some advice to someone who is looking for an internship like what you have. So tell a little bit about your journey and then maybe a piece of advice of what someone could do to get an internship like you did.
Yeah. So there's this one thing I've heard across my time, and it's like your network is your net worth. And I truly do believe that because even before getting into two programs I'll talk about in a bit, there were certain people who already had started making their careers or were establishing their careers. Like I said, took the time to talk to me, which is really important. But then these two programs, so the first one I like to shout out is SEO. And I applied to it initially during my freshman year of college. However, my application wasn't strong enough, so I worked hard through sophomore year, applied again, and through this program, I was able to get in, and they provide coaching, resume reviews, a conference at the beginning of the summer to meet all the other interns, that sort of thing. And through that, I was able to brush up on my technical skills, learn what a good resume looks like if I'm trying to break into finance, meet other interns and see others wanting to be people wanting to be interns and see what are they doing? How are they preparing? You know, what can I take from them and start applying myself? That sort of thing. And then the other program I want to shout out is MLT, or Management Leadership for Tomorrow. And it's very similar structure and the way that they provide coaching, resume review, job opportunities, internship opportunities, and then a summit at the end of the summer for all the interns to gather, share their experiences, that sort of thing. So I think going back to what I had mentioned earlier, being surrounded by like-minded people who are driven, ambitious, that sort of thing, just iron sharpens iron, encourages you to continue improving yourself.
I really appreciate you sharing the different programs that you were given. I know that there was a friend of ours that kind of helped us and told us about the programs, and that also kind of gave a direction, because knowing that you wanted to particularly be in finance, maybe with one of those types of companies, then that kind of helped with the process. The other idea and question I have for you now is that you have gotten to this space, you help others, you actually overcame, and I want to point that out. You tried, you went to SEO and you didn't get it the first time, and you tried again. Was it the next year that you tried again? And first of all, how did you feel? And then secondly, how did you end up overcoming that to make sure you still were able to apply that next year?
Yeah, so I think something that's consistent across everybody's internship process is you're going to have to persevere. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get a couple of yeses. So I feel like my initial application to SEO was probably like one of the first times I've really experienced this. But I think that initial rejection showed me that there's areas that I can improve. And it was like feedback. I think one theme I've heard this summer is feedback is a gift. And sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to hear, but at the end of the day, it does make you better. Taking the feedback, seeing, okay, well, at that time, maybe my GPA wasn't high enough. I wasn't doing enough extracurriculars. So acting on that and then coming back and being able to show them, okay, well, this is the feedback you gave me. This is how I acted on it. I think that demonstrates a willingness to learn and like the drive behind it to actually do it, which is essentially what they're looking for in these sorts of programs, because I do think that is what makes a good intern.
It does. And one thing I've learned in my life is that sometimes something that looks like a failure, it really is not a failure. There are many times where it looks like you may have gotten a no, but there is a yes somewhere down the line. And if you're willing to put in the effort, and kudos to you for putting in the effort to go out and continue to pursue and to make yourself a better candidate over time. So thanks for sharing those particular programs. How did you apply for those programs? Was it just a website? Did you have someone come to your school? How did that come about?
Yeah. So when it came to SEO, I think the first time I applied, I didn't really know anybody in the program. But by the second time, I met a couple of other people at my college who were in it and learned a little bit more about how it was impacting them. But then also when I applied, there's like a little section you could fill out asking if you know anybody, if you've been referred by anybody. And I do feel like that can also strengthen your application. But as far as the actual process, I think you simply just go online. If you type in SEO career into Google, you should see it. Go into the website and it should probably be like an apply now sort of button. And then for MLT, I think this was my sophomore year at Carnegie Mellon. They had like some sort of kind of like club fair where they brought in a bunch of different businesses, and there happened to be an MLT recruiter there. From there, just had conversations with her about what would make my application stronger, that sort of thing. Ended up applying and was able to get in. And then, luckily enough, she was willing to come back and speak to the club that I was a part of, called the Black Latino Business Association. And from there, we were able to have maybe 4 or 5 members from that club sign up for MLT as well.
So you did be able to give back and share a lot of your experience with others. And that came from your experience with the MLT and being able to bring them back to your club. And then other students were able to benefit from what you were able to do. Kudos, man, on sharing that with everybody else and helping them along the way. As you have now progressed, you have gone through all of the different programs. What do you define as the one or two things that were most impactful, whether it were any of the trips, as I know for some of the programs that you ended up in, you ended up going on trips, whether it was New York or Houston, or was it, some of the speaking? What are some of the areas that you feel impacted you in the greatest way?
It's a great question. I think the biggest thing is talking to people at every level. I think whenever interns, younger individuals tend to get into this space, it's like, I need to talk to, the managing director at the highest level so I can get my name in front of the big boss. But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think there's a lot to be learned from the first, second, third year analysts, those sorts of people, because they are the closest to you in terms of experience. Like they were just in college a few years ago and usually have a good bit of advice that's, that you can act on in your current stage, which might be a little bit harder for somebody who's, 30 years into their career to think back to. So I think, just talking to a wide range of people is probably one of the best things that I've done personally, because from that, I've learned, what can I do starting out? What are some considerations for when I'm 2 to 5 years into my career? That sort of thing. Um, yeah, and then also being willing to take any opportunity. At my school, they implemented this thing called a pro trek, where they took maybe about 25, 30 students on a trip to New York, where we visited 5 different banks that our school had alumni at and were willing to talk to us as students. It was the first time my school had ever done it. They sent out an application form. And I was like, okay, this looks pretty interesting. I applied, I was accepted for it. And it was one of the greatest opportunities because I was exposed to what it would be like to really work in New York, the variety of opportunities across different firms, that sort of thing. So, just really being willing to take opportunities. I think, yeah, those are my two things. Talk to a range of people and be willing to take opportunities.
I love it because having those types of conversations with all of those different people provide you exposure, allows for you to have an idea of what a job is really like. I think I've told you in the past, and I may have also shared on this podcast that, I thought I was going to be an accountant until I went and I shadowed an accountant, and that accountant during that particular day had $1 million that she had lost and she was trying to find it. She seemed very stressed. There was a lot of anxiety behind it. And this was before everything was in computers. These items were in what they call general ledgers and books. And so she was just trying to find it through paper and reports. And it was interesting for me to say, well, maybe I don't want to be an accountant. Maybe I want to do computer science, or it allows for you to be exposed by talking to other people. So you've had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. Have you found a particular way of being able to contact or a beneficial way of being able to talk to others? Is it going to coffee shops? Is it email? What have you found the best way to approach that if there is an intern out there or someone who's looking to move into that direction, a student? What are some ways they can contact and start that conversation?
So I think starting out as a college student, you have this is the best time to do cold emailing, outreach, and things, because people are more likely to talk to you as they realize you're trying to learn. Now, that does have a caveat. I would say it's important to be strategic in who you're reaching out to. So, you know, if you want to work at like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, whatever, think about who are alumni from your current school that you can reach out to. That way, when you're writing the email, you can say, "Hey, saw you graduated from Carnegie Mellon in 2019. I'm currently here doing business and I'm looking to break into, the finance industry. Would you have time for a 15, 30-minute phone call?" That sort of thing. I do think it's important to have some point of connection. Doesn't always have to be school. You could be from the same hometown. You might both play football at the college level. You could even have the same favorite basketball team, that sort of thing. But it is important to make some sort of connection because the same way that you're reaching out to these people, there's probably 100 other interns who are reaching out to them the same way. So how can you distinguish yourself so that people do want to, take the time to really get to know you?
That is a cool tip. I hopefully everyone who's listening, who's a student, who has maybe children or students that are out there, that to me that's a pro tip to be able to think about what are the connections, and that's for anyone in any type of networking or looking to speak to someone, looking for that point of connection. That is really really cool to be able to do. So, Dyran, as you are moving into this new world of looking to be working and now into the next stages of life, what are your future visions of your life, and what do you see yourself moving into in the next year or so?
Yeah. So I think it's definitely going to be a period of transition and change, but in a good way. So, moving away from the everyday kind of schooling sort of thing to progressing into like a young adult is pretty important. I think things that make me the most excited are, getting to live in New York across my experiences at Andover boarding school, friends I met in Charleston, and even college now. A lot of people are going to end up there. So getting to see these people, hang out with them on a day, well, maybe not a daily basis, but frequently is something that's really exciting to me. And then also just establishing a life up there. Over this past summer, I had the opportunity to try out a couple of different churches up there, you know, go to different basketball courts, play, try new restaurants and things. So, just taking in all these new experiences and trying new things. I think that's the biggest thing.
Hey, that's really cool, and you have thought of those particular items. What do you feel is going to be the most challenging difference or change that you're going to have to look at as you were transitioning into this work life that you're going to have? Is it going to be training, uncertainty, social? What are some of the challenges you think you're going to have coming up?
Yeah. With anything, I think there's an experience curve. So it is going to be a lot of new things at once, starting a new job, living in a new city. Who knows what the living situation might look like? Maybe living with your roommates, living in a new part of the city, taking a new transit route just to get to work. So I think it'll be settling into a groove. That might be the most challenging part, but you know, I accept that challenge and I'm excited for it because I think by learning how to conquer this, it'll only help me improve if I, in 5, 10 years, move to another city and have to do it all over again.
And you've done it before, right? You've done it. You kind of talked about it with high school. You've done it with going to Carnegie Mellon. And so you are now just moving into another stage, or as I describe it, another season of life that you get to experience, explore, and look at these new possibilities and opportunities that are ahead of you. And we are so proud that you were able to get to this place where you have a job offer. So I'm going to take you back. You started with your first job. Was that at Starbucks?
It sure
Tell
was.
me a little bit about that, because I think sometimes we can get maybe despondent based on where we are at this moment. And tell me some of the things that you learned from starting at Starbucks and where you started into where you are now.
Yeah. Wow. That's a trip down memory lane. I remember even applying for Starbucks. The way I was able to get in is because I knew somebody who was already working there from my middle school, and she was able to refer me. From there, I was able to sit down with the manager, tell them who I was, why I wanted to work there. And I think that just goes back to the point of your network being your net worth. And then once I was actually working there were a bunch of different skills that I had to learn or that I was able to develop. So, of course, the biggest one is teamwork. Within any given day, you might be a cashier, you might be the person making drinks, or you might be the person in the back washing the dishes. So, with that, you also get versatility. You learn how to do a bunch of different things. And then what else? Working well under high pressure situations. So with each Frappuccino, you know, they expected us to have it out in maybe a minute or a minute and a half. So you get good at, okay, well, this one's in the blender. I'll go ahead and start pouring the milk for the next one. So I guess there's the kind of like that multitasking as well. There are so many good skills. And then another one is communications. Not only are you working within a team to create this finalized product, the drink or the Starbucks food for your customer, you have to communicate well with the customer to understand what their needs are. You know, what type of drink they want. Do they have to have it with non-fat milk because they're lactose intolerant? That sort of thing. I think these are really crucial skills that I learned there and got to develop.
That's interesting because, people you got to get their coffee right, man. You can't have their coffee wrong.
Yeah.
They might get actually mad at you. So sounds like you learned quite a bit from sometimes where we are in a place of learning or preparation for the next opportunity. Sounds like the skill sets that you even learned at a Starbucks where you started to where you are today, you're able to utilize those same types of skills. I'm reminded of when I started working at the shoe store, I was typically introvert and not really speaking to people, but they said, hey, what you have to do every time someone comes to the door, you need to actually welcome them and ask them if they need any help. And that that helped me in life, that I can go up to anyone and ask them or say hi to them and introduce myself. And I believe sometimes the small things that we have in life, and I talk about this as we talk about producing on purpose in our lives, is that sometimes the small things add up to big things. And you are definitely an example of that, of the small things that you learned. So you went out and you got the job at Starbucks. I remember that. Went out and found your friend and was able to go out and do that. And then there were skill sets that you learned. You had to learn all of those different drinks and learn how to work in the team. And all of those, you might not be making coffee anymore, but you may be helping with assets now that you're going to be helping the client with, that you're going to make sure is right. And you also have a team that you work with and you're going to help them do well. So I am proud to hear you make those associations, because that's how you begin to produce based on what you were born for. Wherever situation you're in, no matter what it is, you have been able to take and acquire those skills to become better and to become more than what you are. So, Dyran, I am so excited to have you as one of those initial guests on the new season of the Produce on Purpose podcast. And what I'm going to continue to do is to ask questions that help us in our journey and who we are. So my last question is about you, and it's a question that typically is asked of me sometimes when I'm guesting on podcasts is, what would you tell the Dyran that was just coming into high school that you want him to know, three things that you want him to know based on where you are today that would be beneficial for him, that he should have known? And I think this will help anyone that is coming up that says, hey, producing on purpose in life, walking through life, sometimes there are things that we learn that we can always tell our younger self because now we're a little wiser now. What would that be?
Number one, I think, you know, smile, keep a smile on your face. I think when you're just genuinely a, happy person, fun person to work with, I think people see that and they appreciate that, and it makes them want to be around you, that sort of thing. So yeah, just keep your head up, always smile. I think that's a big one. Try new things, take opportunities, because you never know. You actually never know what doors they might open. I think, you know, in high school, the biggest example of that was, rather than sticking with Spanish, I already had 1 year under my belt from middle school. You know, I took the opportunity to try something completely new and study Russian. And from then, it's opened so many doors. I met so many people from it. And then lastly, keep your network close, because I think some people think of networking as a very transactional sort of deal, but it's more so just like keeping up with people, keeping in touch with them. If you know they have a birthday coming up, taking that time to send a 2-minute text message, because although they might not have heard from you in the past few months, I'm sure they'll really appreciate it. And then, now you're at the top of their mind, and say they have a job opening at their company. They're like, oh, wow, you might be a perfect person for it. Well, now you're at the top of their minds. So, yeah, I think those are my three things. Keep a smile, take new opportunities, and keep up with people.
Hey, that's great advice. And as you continue on your journey, my prayer is that you continue to let your light shine. You have always been one that is very sociable, whether it was on the playground or anywhere else. So keep it up. And as you move into these new seasons, remember what you just told your younger self, that as you're moving forward, that you are going to continue to produce on the purposes that you were born for, continue to look for that. And I'm just excited for you, man. Anything else that you want to share with the audience that we did not talk about today that you feel that we should share?
I think just if you're in the process of looking for an internship, you know, don't give up. I think personally, I applied to maybe like 65, 70 places before I got, and out of those 65, I think I got 2 yeses. So it is a numbers game, and it does take perseverance. And some days you'll really feel dejected. You won't want to keep trying anymore, but I encourage you to keep going, because you never know when that next yes might be. And then again, just stressing the importance of smiling. Like, if you do have the opportunity to come in as an intern, people really appreciate the young energy with a lot of smiles, because business can become a bit repetitive. But, whenever somebody's coming in smiling, how was your day? How was your weekend? People really appreciate that. And, you know, if they find that you're fun to work with, or not fun to work with, but like great to work with, chances of you getting that return offer are much higher than someone who's great at doing the work, but not necessarily, the most fun to work with. So just keep that in mind. And I feel like that's personally helped me. So I wanted to share it with anybody who may be listening to this as well.
Thanks, Dyron, for sharing that. And that's one of the key portions of why I do what I do, is that everyone can wake up every morning and every day and have joy, life, fulfillment, love, and excitement in their day. So as you have told them, be authentic with the smile, be authentic with really caring about others and sharing that. And that is what will allow you to produce these great things in your life. Thank you so much. And you continue to have faith, love, and hope in all that you do. Continue to strengthen those relationships that you have. I love what you said about having that network being your net worth. That network seems to be a very important piece of your life. You're very sociable, very driven in that area. And I believe that that will be helpful for this audience to hear that having that, doing that on a consistent basis with all those that we have in our life is completely beneficial. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Produce on Purpose podcast. And hopefully, we'll have you on again and you'll be giving us some other great advice and great things that you have been able to do. All right, Dyran, you have a good one, and we will both produce on purpose.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.